Should you have kids? Lately, I have come across a ton of articles and videos and just the constant stream on news outlets of the populations shrinking in a lot of the first world countries. And it's been nothing short but sad news. You have a place where there's still a ton of resources, and there's a lot of people who have, for the most part, a kind disposition. And I think they've really bought into the fear or the lies or whatever it is about having kids, raising a family. And you may say, well, you've already started a family. What do you know about cost and frustrations and issues that come with having kids? And I'd like to say I'm that anomaly in the negative realm that shouldn't have even had kids. I come from a very broken home. I come from a broken financial situation, clawed my way through all of that. And I live in one of the most expensive cities in the world. And I am, doing this on a shoestring budget for the most part. Thankfully, again, I've had a lot of wonderful blessings over the years that have helped me be in a better financial situation, as well as I've worked my tail off. Sometimes I've worked up to 100 hours a week. Now, this was when I was younger, before I had a family. But, with all that being said, with all of the negativity towards family, as well as my own dispositions and my own problems, I just kind of wanted to spend the night just talking about the wonders of being a parent. Nothing negative, not even going to try to go off on any tangents, because I really feel that if strong, good charactered people don't speak into situations and don't have the right disposition on a certain matter, a lot of things are going to get pushed down too far, and we need to speak up as people. We need to shed, obviously, the negative things, but we need to really shed the positive things. And it is, honestly, it seems pretty negative to have lots of kids these days. It's a downright taboo thing. And if you can't have kids, or you're beyond that age, or you're single, it's okay. My heart goes out to you. I understand it to a degree. I'm in my 40s now. I'm in my 40s and I have 3 kids under 4, right? So I know what it's like to feel some of those feels, and maybe you never will, and that's okay too. You're no less of a person whether you have kids or you don't have kids. But my main goal tonight, and that's probably why you clicked on this video, is because I just want to promote the concept and the idea of having kids. Too many folks are just down on it, or I only want to have 2, one, I just want to have a kid. But there's just so many wonderful, wonderful things that kids not only do that are just spectacular in their growth in front of you, but just how much they make you change, how much they make you grow. It's incredible. So let me go through that laundry list. Actually, let me tell you a story first. So today was my eldest, the story's about my eldest. Today, she and I decided that we were going to embark on a 100-piece puzzle. And we've only done like maybe 25 or 30 pieces or 40 pieces in the past. And I didn't know how this was going to go. She's only 4.5. And she utterly surprised me at her ability to match colors, the way she was processing information. And yeah, I helped her out a fair bit. If she had to do that puzzle on her own, if she was, locked away in a room, I don't know if she would have been able to pull it off. But once we got going, and once we got especially the edges done, and we were able to get the flat sides done, she just started crushing through it. She was pulling pieces together that I wouldn't have put together right away. I'm more of like a color and edges kind of a person, but she had like the logic down of where things were going and why they might go there, and her creativity was just mesmerizing. And of course, I'm anecdotally speaking, as this is my child. I obviously have a skewed point of view on the situation, But I didn't, I'm not much of a puzzle guy in general. The puzzles don't really, get me going. I never would actually sit down and finish a puzzle myself. But because she was so into it, I was into it. And I had this wonderful epiphany that there's going to be things that she's going to introduce me to, like hobbies or sports or movies or foods, locations for traveling. And I'm going to actually have like some kind of like, after I'm her, first her godly parent and the person who's pointing her to the Lord, and a person who is hopefully showing her morality and right from wrong. And once I've done all of those things, and I've shared as much of life and being that tough person in her life, as well as that loving safety net, I hope one day, maybe on some level, I can kind of be a friend to her. And she's super cool. I'm like, wow, she wants to hang out with me. She wants to spend time with me. And that was just amazing, amazing, absolutely amazing. And it kind of took my breath away. That's, again, one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about this tonight, is our society has this really skewed view of what raising children are supposed to be. And it hurts me. It hurts me that we push kids off into the corner, or we push them into systems, and we don't spend time with them. We don't get to know them. We don't get to talk to them and hear how creative they are. And sometimes I think maybe I'm the one who's wrong. I'm the one who's not, doing things right. I'm just getting the bottle to wash the bottle here. I think sometimes, maybe I'm riding on my high horse. But, when I think about it, I'm like, I don't have a high horse to ride in on. I'm in survival mode. I'm the person that probably people at times look down on, because we gave up buying $1 million home to, for my wife to stay at home, which she wanted to do since I had met her, before I met her. We gave up the quote unquote, $1 million home by me not going after promotions and crushing it in certain areas and working those extra hours. That we don't go on fancy vacations. We don't have the best, fanciest home, especially in a city where things are starting to get within reasonability on some levels, but it's still way out of control for most people. We've given up a lot in that sense, in the worldly type things, the possession type things, to have pretty amazing relationships with some absolutely phenomenal people, which, are actually my flesh and blood, a part of me. And I get to spend all of this time with them that a lot of parents don't get a chance to spend with their kids. It just boggles my mind. These are like, if anything, the most precious commodity we have in our universe are these kids. They're kids. They're there. They're engaging the marvels in the world. And so sometimes I think to myself, man, I'm the crazy one. I'm the one who's like, oh, maybe I am screwing this up. Maybe we'll end up becoming, those helicopter or snowplow parents. But they legitimately want to spend time with us, and they cry when we leave, and they do have their friends and their buddies, and they go off and do stuff, but they just want to know us and get to know us. And certain milestones that at the time people said we weren't hitting or whatever, we've surpassed these quote unquote milestones. And again, I if you've watched any of the other videos I've made, I'm not really down with that idea of milestones. Maybe in your teens or 20s you want to consider if you've hit those milestones or not, or whatever. And I've gone to therapy plenty of times, so I speak out of pure experience. I'm not trying to blast anyone who's in that situation. But yeah, just I think we don't grasp as a society how much these kids need us, which I know sounds negative, but in the positive realm, man, they need us because they literally, in some ways people will say they're idolized, but they see God in us. And that is like such an amazing testimony. And hey, my kids may not end up being Christians. My kids may not end up serving the Lord or being kind people. It could happen. I'm not setting them up for that. I'm trying hard to prevent that. I'm trying hard to give them opportunities to explore, but also protect them at the same time. But you never know. You know, there is no grandkids in heaven. You just got to do the best you can. But anyway, I kind of went on a mini sidetrack here just to say how precious these little ones are and how much fun you can have with life with them. They just have so much to offer. Anyway, so I'm just going to go through as many things as I can think of tonight about why having kids is just super cool. I'd say, and I'm just going to do it in no particular order. One is that it also helps you to appreciate what your parents went through with you and the situation you were in. Like I've talked to you guys before, you know, my family didn't have the best situation, neither did my wife's family. But, you know, like, you really start to see how difficult things were. It puts things in perspective, which is a really, really good thing. That is like, I know I have on my thumbnail, it's picturesque. It is picturesque because you get an opportunity to glimpse back, you know, 20, 30, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, to see what your parents did and how they were doing it differently and what challenges they faced. And it gives you a new respect for them, a new honor for those people that you call your parents, that are your flesh and your blood. And I think that is just such a unique experience to have. And I do hope that everyone has that opportunity to do that, to be a parent, so that they can even just barely understand what their parents had to go through. And as you process that, I'm pretty sure you'll come to some new revelations that have been downright fantastic in my life. And I really am taking a new look and approach to just the world in general. Even the way when I was working with children, and maybe some of the shortcomings that I had, or things I did super well, or things that I didn't see, you know, you just kind of have that new profound perspective. Which leads me to my next point, which is actually, it changes your perspective on the way the world works and on the energy that you have and this unbelievable energy tank that you have. And sometimes it gets tapped out, you know, sometimes you're at the brink, the edge, but usually that's not a kid thing, that's a you thing. That's you know, you might be too selfish in a certain area to cut something out to reap the benefit of being around these little boogers who are obviously testing your boundaries, but making you into a better person. You know, from the parents that I know that are trying to do a good job, there's not one of them that I would want to hang out with them in the single life anymore. And this is not a blast on anyone who's single. You're single and you want to stay single, or you want to get married, you want to have kids, or one kid, or whatever it might be, that's cool, that's all on you. I'm not saying anything negative in that sense. But what I am saying is the people who have had kids, who've put in the effort, who've changed, who've even gone to counsel or whatever it is, they are different people. They are lovely acting. They have changed. And I think some people who don't have kids, or some people who never get into a relationship or whatever, maybe they don't need that. Maybe they're just pleasant rays of sunshine that never needed that change. But I can say for sure, my kids have changed my outlook on life, how I treat people. I think it really did start with my wife. My wife and I, you know, being married, you know, and being from different cultures, we had a great time of just exploring what the fruit of the Spirit is. And from that, we became such nicer people. It took a little while too, of course, like anything. You know, you got to sand down the surface before you can really like varnish it or make it smooth and make it lovely. But you know, once you do it, it's worth every painstaking moment. And again, with kids, like, it just kind of almost magnifies it a bit more, especially the more you have. But you also see this like cohesive team forming, which it's amazing. Like, you're a part of this fantastic team. And yeah, right now I am on you know, meet someone, put the effort in, go to counseling, get yourself through, find a spouse, get married, have kids, adopt kids, spend time with the future, because in my opinion, as a Christian, God made us to have children, to experience what it's like in that process of that quote unquote natural birth per se, or that adoption process. Because when you do, you just see life in a different realm. So I believe that another point is that you spiritually get deeper with God because of your kids. It doesn't seem like it at first, especially when they're really young and maybe, okay, they're trying your patience or whatever, but you rethink the idea of what discipline looks like. You rethink what love looks like. You rethink the graces that you have. You rethink their interactions with each other. Even, what happened with Cain and Abel, when Cain killed Abel, like the heartbreak of not only being the first time death entered the world, but the first time that death entered the world for these two people who loved each other and who only knew each other. That must have just been horrible. So even when I see my daughters like get into it, like all I want to do is break it up. But at the same time, they're young enough that I have to also help them to, resolve their own issues. And it is the cutest thing in the world when they figure out their problems and they can hug it out, or they cry it out, and then like 5 minutes later, they're in the room together, just holding each other, or wrestling with each other, or giggling with each other. It is just super precious. There's actually there's a shopping cart at our local grocery store that has the carts made into cars. And so I'll go around and vroom, and put up the, pop a wheelie with them and do fast, slow, and we'll find aisles. We'll look for aisles that are empty, and then I'll do a little bit of a sprint and a slow down. They just absolutely love it. But the last time we went, I rarely had to do any of that, because they were just bumping into each other and laughing and just having like the time of their lives. And I'm the one I'm pushing the cart, but I'm the one who's just laughing along with them and staring at their little comedy show that they have going on. And it was so brilliant to see. And then, I think I guess I should say that, I also was elated to see how many people thought that it was enjoyable. There's some people who are just crotchety. They're always crotchety. You're not going to be able to defeat that crotchetiness with anything. They're going to look down on kids or families as a whole. And, that's just the nature of humanity. People are just going to be people, right? But for the most part, everyone, especially in a dense city like this, they love watching kids, especially the ones that are obviously well behaved, right? Because there's so many families that are broken, that are hurting. And I'm not saying we're better. I just, honestly, straight goods. We put in the work. We put in the work. I see my kids minimum 4 to 6 hours every day. I have been away from them pretty much like 5 days total, maybe 10 days total in my life, like because my wife went to her parents or something like that, right? I've chosen not to take jobs, lucrative situations, to be around them. And it is starting to show, because I just really, really like spending time with my fam. Did they, again, get annoying at times? Absolutely. Not my wife, of course. Not my wife. My wife is a lovely, beautiful angel. No, I'm just kidding. But, they just spending time with them, I learned so much about myself, about other people, about their day and how they see the world. I'm 6'2", 6'3", like 192 centimeters, somewhere in there, depending on which height measurement tool you're using, whatever, right? I've gone to different places and I've gotten like 193 centimeters. Anyway, so they're shorter. One of them is half my size. One of them is about a third my height. And they see the world. They're always looking up. They trust you so much. They long to be with you, to the point of annoyance sometimes, right? But even tonight, like when I was laying, we have a big bed, and One of my daughters is in the other room. My wife is laying down with her. I lay down in the bed. I lay down always flat on my back, just trying to get my posture. And my littlest one, she kept on rolling over and laughing, and she's like putting her hands on my face, and she say, "Daddy, sleep." And then she's like, "Daddy, get up." And then she holds my arm. And after like 20 minutes to half an hour, as I'm resting my body, she finally grabs onto my arm and just holds it and squeezes it and passes out. And I'm like almost in tears there because I'm just like, this little precious person is safe. And just like how I'm safe in God's arms and I have that faith that God makes me safe, my daughters, and eventually I hope my son, feel safe in my arms. They feel safe. They trust that I have their best intention, even when I'm disciplining them. I tell them, I said, "Look, I love you. I don't want to do any of this discipline. I don't want to take your toys from you. I don't want you to feel, these feelings that you have." And then, when I go to give them a hug, after they hug and squeeze so tight because they know that my intention is not to go around disciplining them, but I do it because I do love them. And just that weight that bears on you because of that love that's there is a weight that feels like it's going to crush you, but you want it to crush you every single time. It's just so precious. I think of how creative they are and how the window into their world is just, it's spectacular. It's like trying to they try to smell the color blue. They try to smell the color blue. They just have this way about them of, thinking of angles that we don't think of as adults because we have all these rules and regulations when we're not allowed to think that way. They don't do that. They don't have that. I find that some of the best pieces of conversation or best creative thoughts that I've ever had has been in dialogue with kids over I worked with kids for about 10 years or so. And my daughter's starting to hit that age where she's telling stories and she's recrafting things. And I'm like, that's a unique perspective. I never thought of things that way because she's not inhibited by the rules and laws and everything else that we create. She's just having fun. And if you ever want to have someone in your life who's going to just tell you what it is, tell you how it is, as long as your kids are not afraid of you, man, they will tell you how it is. And usually it's in a respectful way. Sometimes they can be a little disrespectful or silly, and I'll let it off most of the time. But when they do it out of a place of pure curiosity and respect, those messages, those compliments, or those pieces of information that need to be said, it's unreal how legit they are. It's just unreal. There's just so many things, spiritually, mentally, the amount of neurological changes that'll happen in your life. I think people who they live longer when they have children historically. Now, granted, it depends on the situation, depends on nutrition in the neighborhoods and so on and so forth. But usually there's more community, not always. And again, I'm talking about there's people who have kids who are in very unhealthy situations and people who have kids who are in very healthy situations. I think statistically, if they were, and if the study hasn't been done, I'm sure it has been, but if you take families that seem to be pretty well together, multiple generation homes, people live longer, they connect better, their quality of life is much better. Having kids has that effect on your physical life, as whether you're a parent or a grandparent. Usually, unless you're really putting bad energy into your body, you could stay super physically fit, super physically active when you have kids. They keep you on your toes. The way you, even for my wife didn't like cooking as much, but now that we have kids, she just loves cooking because it's not just her mouth to feed or me and her to feed with a bunch of leftovers. It's like every meal is going to get devastated, right? You might have a little bit of a leftover, but she's just so thrilled to cook a meal now where she wasn't before because there's this love she can input and it's all going to get eaten up. There's something about watching your kids eat And like, of course, when we were married, like we would exchange cooking dinners or we'd go, but we had that opportunity to go out for dinner. So it wasn't like, oh, we didn't love spending time with each other or cooking for each other, doing things like that. It's just we had all these amazing different options at any given time. We were both working, making great money. And now, though, it's like spending that time to give them that good nutrition that they need. And the fact that my wife, again, is a public health nurse and I've been into the fitness side of the world for 25 years now, or 20 years, I guess, and successfully for the past 10, uh, you just kind of want to give them good food for their brain, for their digestive system, for the way they live, the way they process information, their strength factor, just setting them up to succeed and not based off of tons of money either, or trying to push them into classes and things that are away. It's starting to teach them how to cook and clear the table. I got a 4-year-old and an almost 2-year-old, and they know how to clear the table now, right? They are wanting to work alongside. Like I was at church today and I was just sweeping the floors and they started fighting over the dustpan and the duster. They wanted to help me out. And I was like, whoa, there's these two little helpers and they're helping me to reorient my world. And not to mention, going to the park and just going outside and just playing in the dirt and the mud, going tobogganing and playing the different seasons. There is just something so simple about getting in the dirt with your kids. I think Jack Black said this. He said, you can spend a bunch of money, you can regret spending a bunch of money going to Disneyland and all these places. Instead, you could just see where the kid is having fun, where they're at, and then just sitting on the floor with them or getting in the mud with them. And I'm botching what he's like the way he said it. But essentially, it's just wherever they are, whatever they're doing, however they're enjoying life, go and enjoy along with them. And you will find that there won't be any form of blockade. They will be giving you their transparent self, and they will remember you sitting in the mud with them playing for 3 hours over dragging them halfway across the city or the town to some amusement park or to some fancy dinner. They just want to be with you. And that is a refreshing feeling. And that's why I think, sadly, a lot of people will go off and try to have a child on their own, a lot of women in particular, because they are looking and longing for that community, that relationship, and they have it with a child, and then they put things on the child that should be going to a spouse. And so that's another way that those systems can get broken down. And I don't want people to go around, have a bunch of kids out of wedlock, and and all that. But if you have that opportunity to court someone, to love someone, start praying, for yourself to have kids, to have a spouse, because it is at times definitely trying, super hard work. Sometimes you're like, why am I doing this? Why is every muscle in my body aching me and I haven't gone to the gym? But I can tell you that 90% of the time, I'm just like in awe at my situation and how thankful in how tight of a, even a financial world that we live in. So yeah, there's plenty more to say, but I can't do it justice. And yeah, it's such a wonderful pleasure to have children. Such a wonderful pleasure. And of course, you'll hear me talking about the negatives and one-offs here and there in the videos. But the main thing is that children are such a blessing from God. Never forget that. There is a reason for that. And I also don't want you to see, I have friends who have 5, 6, 7 kids. At some point or another too, like it's very hard to see in the Bible a family that actually is thriving and doing well. Like it just sucks that the human condition is that a lot of families stink. But at least with godly principles and what God is showing us and what God has shown us, if you do things right, if you take the time to pour into your kids, if you love them, if you show them right from wrong, if you're sowing those seeds, if you're setting up discipline, if you're loving them the way God adopts us and loves us as his children, for the most part, things will go well for you when they're older, and they will remember the things that you instilled in them. And I really, really suggest, if you can, have some kiddos, because it is changing my life for the better on a consistent basis, and I'm just loving seeing them grow up. I can't stop thinking about that puzzle time with my eldest today. It was like an hour, and it was just a pure joy. And I can't even imagine what it'll be like in 5 or 10 years. And maybe the teenage years will be super rough and all that stuff. But I'm a guy who plans for the worst and hopes for the best. And I'm planning for my feelings to get hurt, but I'm also planning for those moments where I can bust out Dutch Blitz and play board games, or they could take me on a hike or to a new food place they found, or we can go on a family trip together. And it is so worth those building blocks for the long-term future and instilling these godly values that inevitably is helping you in your spirit, your mind, your body, your finances, your mental health, your relationships, and just even meeting other parents and walking alongside them in their trials and tribulations. It is absolutely worth it. So yeah, just trying to make sure that I haven't missed anything, any stories, but I'm pretty much here every night. I'm sure you'll hear a million of these stories by the time I go, which will hopefully be in my 90s or my 100s, or with robotic hips in my 130s or 40s. But anyway, I think that's it. I'm just digging into the bottom of the jar with my spatula, trying to see if there's any other peanut butter for today. No, I think that's it. I think I'm all crunched out. All right, if you'd like to watch any other dads doing dishes, check out the playlist right here. If you would like to subscribe, please do so. It really helps out. Do that right here. Just want to say thank you so much for watching. Have yourself a wonderful day, evening, morning, or night. God bless ya.